Are you like me? Do you hate parades? I hate parades. I don't recall ever having watched a single parade in my entire life that I have enjoyed even slightly. But having said that, there is a parade coming up in a little over a month that, if it does actually happen, I will probably hate more than all the other parades I've ever seen combined. Here's an article on the subject from the AP. Headline: Army plans for a potential parade on Trump's birthday call for 6,600 soldiers. AP learns. This article by Lolita C. Baldor. Quote, detailed Army plans for a potential military parade on President Donald Trump's birthday in June call for more than 6,600 soldiers, at least 150 vehicles, 50 helicopters, 7 bands, and possibly a couple thousand civilians. The Associated Press has learned. The planning documents obtained by the AP are dated April 29 and 30 and have not been publicly released. They represent the Army's most recent blueprint for its long-planned 250th anniversary festival on the National Mall and the newly added element, a large military parade that Trump has long wanted but is still being discussed. The Army anniversary just happens to coincide with Trump's 79th birthday on June 14th. And the article goes on to estimate that such a parade would likely cost in the range of tens of millions of dollars. And it's basically a done deal that the Army is going to have some kind of celebration on June 14th to mark its 250th anniversary. It's just that this parade may or may not be part of it. What do you think Trump would vote for? Do you think Trump would want to have the big parade for, of course, for the Army anniversary? It just so happens to fall on his birthday, but it would really be for the Army, right? That's what they'd be telling everybody. Do you think Trump would want that? I think maybe he would. Continuing from further down in the article, in his first term, Trump proposed having a parade after seeing one in France on Bastille Day in 2017. Trump said that after watching the 2-hour procession along the famed Champs-Élysées, that he wanted an even grander one on Pennsylvania Avenue. That plan was ultimately dumped due to the huge costs, with one estimate of a $92 million price tag and other logistical issues. Among those were objections from city officials, who said including tanks and other heavy armored vehicles would tear up the roads. Not that Donald Trump or really anyone in his administration would give a shit about that. Oh, it would inconvenience the actual people who live in Washington, D.C. and the actual infrastructure of the city. But what's more important, that or having a parade that definitely isn't in honor of President Trump's birthday? Wink, because, we don't have nearly enough parades in America. I guess the part that offends Trump isn't the lack of parades in America. It's the lack of fucking tanks and troops marching in formation. He sees all of his dictator buddies do that. He sees the Bastille Day parade, and he's like, that's cool. Then he sees, the troops marching through the square in Russia or in North Korea, and that's really what he gets jealous of. I bet you it's not the Bastille Day. The Bastille Day parade is just a convenient excuse. What really makes his mouth water, and what really makes his blood run cold with jealousy about other countries and their parades, is when he sees those fascist authoritarian military parades in dictatorships, and he says, why can't I have one of those? So that's what he wants. But the official line is going to be, oh no, it's not for President Trump, it's for the Army. But that hasn't stopped a lot of President Trump's supporters from jumping to the obvious conclusion and saying publicly, where everybody can see, that this parade is totally going to be in honor of President Trump, and well, it should be. Here's a piece written by a fellow named Professor Toto. It's from his Substack, and the headline is, Resurrecting Old Glory, Trump's Birthday Parade, and the Power of American Pageantry. Subheadline, Pageantry is not vanity, it is victory made visible. Why Trump's birthday military parade is more than a celebration, it's a divine demonstration. Now, Professor Toto is not exactly one of the leading voices of the conservative movement. At least not yet. Who knows how big he will become in the future. But at the moment, his Substack only has several hundred subscribers. The reason why I'm singling out this piece is not to have a go at Professor Toto in person, although I am quite sure he's a delusional asshole. The reason why I'm highlighting Professor Toto's piece is because I find that it is representative of the broader frame of mind that a lot of Trump supporters are in regarding the parade and regarding Trump himself. So let's take a look at some of Professor Toto's thoughts about this potential military parade on Trump's birthday. They say it's just a coincidence. Just a coincidence that President Donald J. Trump wants a military parade. Just a coincidence that he wants it on his birthday. But I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in providence. The stars have aligned, the calendar has spoken, and on June 14th, Flag Day no less, the world will once again look upon America, but not with confusion, not with contempt, not with weakness. They will see strength, and that strength has a name: Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump. So yeah, just a little glimpse of the MAGA mindset there. You can see the disconnection from reality, the insistence that if this parade goes forward and if it is publicly known, officially or unofficially, that this parade is being done to honor President Trump or at the behest of President Trump, that somehow the rest of the world is going to look at it and see it as a sign of strength. Look, the President of the United States threw himself a parade. What a secure, strong man he clearly is. That's definitely the sort of thing that a strong person would do in honor of themselves. Throw a parade with tanks and stuff. That's definitely what the rest of the world will be thinking if it happens. And who's saying it's a coincidence? They say it's just a coincidence. That's his opening line. Who's saying it's a coincidence? Except maybe some of the Trump people who are trying to exercise their plausible deniability and say, oh, it's for the Army's anniversary, it's for Flag Day, it's nothing to do with Trump. Maybe some of them are trying to play the coincidence card, but most people know exactly what this is, and there's no coincidence involved here whatsoever. So he's already beginning with a false narrative. How uncharacteristic of a member of the MAGA movement. Continuing, cue the naysayers. They wring their hands. They throw up their spreadsheets. They scream about the cost of such a display. Millions of dollars wasted, wagging the dog, a dictator's delusion. But let me pose a simple question. What is the cost of not displaying strength? I feel like we're all finding that out in real time ever since Trump was inaugurated, aren't we? But continuing with the words of Professor Toto, history is not kind to the timid. Every military power in the history of the world has understood the power of pageantry. Rome did, Napoleon did, America once did. You know, there's a regime missing from that list. A military power of the past that certainly understood the power of pageantry and of big parades, of rows and rows and rows of soldiers, all walking in lockstep while the great leader watched from his elevated platform and waved to all the soldiers with a peculiarly stiff arm. A military parade is not just for the people, it's for the world. It sends a message louder than speeches and stronger than sanctions. We are prepared. We are proud. We are not to be trifled with. Yep. We can have our soldiers march down the street. Our soldiers can drive our tanks. Look, they're driving them down Pennsylvania Avenue right now. You'd better not mess with us, rest of the world, because we have military equipment and we know how to drive it on the road. And also we can march. And look how many of us there are. And, I mean, maybe this one is legitimate. Look how much money we're prepared to waste on this shit. Think of how much we'll spend to bomb the shit out of your homes. Don't let modern critics rewrite history. Pageantry is patriotic. In 1865, at the end of the Civil War, Washington, D.C. hosted the Grand Review of the Armies. Union soldiers marched in triumph down Pennsylvania Avenue. Not a cost, a healing. Yes, absolutely, because we have all, as a nation, totally healed from the Civil War. No lingering after effects from that whatsoever. In 1919, after World War I, New York City held a massive parade for returning troops. The Victory Loan campaign was a direct result, a display of might and national morale. In 1942, during the dark days of World War II, military parades in every major city rallied support and reminded citizens, you are protected. Stay strong. In 1991, after the Gulf War, George H.W. Bush held a military parade down Constitution Avenue to celebrate Operation Desert Storm. The purpose? To show the world, don't try us. Trump is not introducing a new idea. He's resurrecting an old glory. Pageantry is not vanity. It is victory made visible. And I'll spare you the rest of the Professor Toto article from there. I think you get the idea. Do you notice anything about those examples from history that he lists of previous military parades that they all have in common that this Trump birthday army parade would not have in common with all of those? 1865, Civil War. 1919, World War I. 1942, World War II. 1991, First Gulf War. Those were all parades that were either following a military victory or took place within the context of an ongoing military conflict. So yes, they were celebrations of victory or attempts to rally public sentiment to support the armed forces in the hopes of achieving a victory that had not yet been won. But they were all within the context of war. Actual, no fooling, boots on the ground, shooting and fighting and killing and dying military conflict. War. Are we saying that we're at war now? Is that what Dr. Toto's saying? Is that what he's implying Trump is saying by having this military parade? That we're in the midst of a war and we have to show our strength. We have to use the pageantry of a military parade as a show of strength to make our victory visible. You know what? I will give Professor Toto credit for something here. Because I'm not above that. I'm a fair person. I think Professor Toto is right. We are in the middle of a war. Now, it's not a military war yet. Hopefully it won't escalate to that. It's not an armed conflict. It's not an actual, literal civil war in the United States like it was in the 1860s, where two armies are clashing all across the country and people are killing each other. Americans are killing Americans. It's not that kind of a war. And I hope it never gets to that point. And I don't think it will, but I sincerely hope that it doesn't. I hope that in a few years we don't have to have a military parade like the one that was held in 1865 to celebrate the end of the actual Civil War. But we are in a war. It's a war of ideas. It's a war of ideologies. It's a war of truth versus lies. It's a war of reality versus false narrative. It's a war of left versus right. Trump versus everybody who is not with Trump. It's a war. It's a war of words. It's a war of politics. It's a war that hopefully we can continue to fight in the arena of ideas and elections and campaigns and protests, public pressure, speaking out, using our voices, taking to the streets occasionally, as a lot of people are planning to do. There are protests being organized for June 14th in opposition to this planned parade. I think that's a good thing. I think that's an important thing. That's the kind of war this is. That's the kind of war that we're fighting right now. And we're fighting over control of our politics. We're fighting over our place in the world. We're fighting over our national identity. We're fighting over the rights of millions of us who live here, citizens and non-citizens, documented and undocumented, human rights. Who gets to have them? Who gets to have their rights recognized? Who gets liberty and who gets to be deprived of that liberty? Those are the things that we're fighting over. We're fighting over what is going to be our national character going forward. If you want to get super poetic about it, we're fighting over the soul of the United States. And God help us if Donald Trump and the likes of Professor Toto If they win this war, perhaps they will want to throw themselves a parade. But if people on our side, if we win the war, our prize for winning is not having a parade. Our prize for winning is getting to still have a country.